Hi and welcome to Thete Gaming, where I'll be discussing the expected announcement of the third edition of Age of Sigmar, where there was some good and bad news. It wasn't actually that much time for a lot of news, but there was good and bad news. Now, my focus is essentially on the rules. I like playing the game. There are some people who very much like the modelling and the painting, and they may play some games. I like playing the games, and I will paint if I have to. Don't like it. Now, some of the lore that they explained is interesting, and some of the lore that's been there, since I got back into the hobby of Age of Sigmar has been interesting. The Soul Wars were interesting, and I do like the way the narrative is always moving forwards. Like we had the Soul Wars when I first came into Age of Sigmar, and now the Soul Wars are over. And that's a real difference to how the story was in, say, Fantasy Battle, where it often circled back on itself like an episode of The Simpsons to avoid any major changes to the world. Until that is, they blew it all up. But anyway, I noticed that the lore is once again focused on the Stormcast Eternals. Now, nice to see there's going to be a new range of models for them. Sorely needed an expansion to the range, I thought. There was me fearing they might work on some models, that currently only exist in Finecast or Metal. Like the Scryer Acolytes that cost you well over £200 for a single battle line unit, because the models are only available in Metal at £10 each. Or Fire Slayers in terms of new units in general. No. GW have got their heads screwed on. New Stormcast, that's what's needed. And it's like they don't even believe they need more units. The new reveal of Indrasta, that huge new Stormcast model with the spear, looks amazing. But they described her as being on par with the Celestant Prime. So they're basically saying they come up with this complex new model. It doesn't fill some perceived niche or gap that exists within the range. It's just there to overlap something that already exists. It's basically the same sort of thing. Yeah, of course, it'll have different rules, but they've said themselves it serves the same purpose. But anyway, rules. Good and bad. I'll start with the good first. Now, in the very limited word we've heard on it, they said they made a real focus of making the rules clear. I think that's really good. Really welcome. If it means what I think it means. There are ambiguities in the rules. It can be messy. You shouldn't need to flick between 5 or 6 different rule books, plus FAQs from the website for each of them, just to play your army in a single game. If what they mean is they're moving away from that, that's brilliant. I mean, really, I do not understand why there is any excuse, if you go to a tournament or even just a club or someone's house, why you should ever have to take more than just your army book and a rule book. And if rules get updated, update the rule book, right? And the big hefty tome, they don't have to do that. But a smaller version that just has the rules. I really like the way they presented rules for the 9th edition 40k. That's really well laid out. Now, there are some things that I would have suggested to make it even clearer. For example, when I played my first ever game of 9th edition, my opponent sort of knew a particular rule, and I wasn't sure, and it took us a while to find it. It wasn't actually obvious. But most of them, it's very easy to find the rules. There's just the odd one that could be in a better place. Or even in a duplicated place, it's easy to find it. But those 9th edition 40k rules, I think, were probably the best presented rules of any edition of either 40k or Warhammer, at least in the modern times when we are used to lots of books. I mean, obviously, when it first came out, there was nothing. It was just it. But in modern times, I would say it's the best one I've ever played or seen. And I also hope, as I say, they bring out a 3rd edition version of just the rules. None of the fluff that goes with it. Yes, bring out that as your big tome that looks nice on your bookshelf and stuff like that. And all big. But that's not practical for taking around with you. And they sort of did do this. They sort of did do this with Age of Sigmar at one point. But then the moves ruled on. They changed them again. And that book is now not useless, but there's things in it that have been superseded. So at the moment for Age of Sigmar, there isn't a rule book that just contains the rules. And I don't mean the core rules that you can download or the ones you get in box sets. I mean the rules, the proper rules, all of the core rules, which includes all the stuff on terrain rules and realms of battle rules and things like that. There isn't a single book that just has those rules and has all of those rules in one tome. And there should be. Each year there should be. They bring out the General's Handbook. Just bring out updated rules book each year. Just do that. You can't be doing with carrying that doorstop around and a load of other books as well to have a book just for triumphs. To need a book that just has the updated rule for triumphs and another one that has the updated rules for realms of battle, although that did at least bring cards out for that last year. That was better. But anyway, presenting the rules clearly is one thing, but you also need to have a clean rule set. But if that is a real focus for the third edition, then I would welcome that. The fear will always be that third edition comes out and it's really clean and I go, this is amazing, this is fantastic, brilliant. But then a year or two later, it all gets messy again as they try and bring out lots of different books. Because they don't ever just want to bring out army books, battle terms as we would call them now. They want to bring on, like the Broken Realm stuff. There's all these little side books. Bring out different rules in different terms and you're back to needing your whole stack of books just to play a game. But there's that. Where I have a real problem with what they announced, I'll do this in the compliment sandwich. I started off with something that's good. And then I'm going to start off with second is the thing I really don't like, but I'll finish off with something else that was good as well. So where I have a real problem, which will come as no surprise to people who've heard me talk about third edition in the past when, a few months ago when we were anticipating this, it's when they said they wanted to keep the double turn. And there was no but. It wasn't like, we really wanted to keep the double turn, but, it just doesn't work, so we haven't. There's none of that. Now, I'm not going to react fully until I see the details. And goodness knows when that will be. But they talked about the need to have a real choice between going first or second. Okay, I'm listening. Then they said, so if you choose to go second, you'll get extra command points. Okay, a couple of things here. And I accept, I don't know the full details, which is why I'm not going to pronounce judgment. I'm not going to say, oh, this is terrible, because I don't know what the overall rule set is. They've just given us a snippet. And a snippet out of context, and you don't know. But currently, the default position is to try and go second. You want to go second if at all sensible. You choose to go second so that you can give yourself the chance of that valuable double turn. The thing is, if you choose to go first, then you have zero chance of that. And that first double turn is the most valuable. I mean, you could get a double turn later on, but if the game's already lost, it's no use to you. Going second in the first battle round and first in the second battle round is so valuable. So valuable. And if you choose to go first, you have zero chance of that. Now, okay, doesn't mean to say your opponent's guaranteed, but they have a better than 50% chance of getting it. All editions, all tournament seasons will always have a meta, of course, but it is so consistently, when you look at the top performing armies, it's unsurprisingly, you've got several of them that will use battalions to shrink the number of drops so that you can determine who gets the first turn. And it's very likely to give your opponent the first turn, which quite a lot of armies actually can't do anything with. There's a lot of armies that you look at your spells, oh, well, I can't really use my offensive spells because we're all out of range. And I've only got so many, because some armies have a lot of buffing spells. And I favour buffing spells partly for this reason. But a lot of armies don't really have access to those. So you've got that wasted. Then very few armies can make much of movement. All you're really doing by moving forwards, because you generally don't score victory points even for capturing objectives in the first battle round. So generally what's happening is you're just moving forward and making it easy for your opponent to charge. So you actually want to be a bit cagey. It's for a lot of armies, there's not a lot you can do with a first turn in the first battle round. So the person going second already has a double advantage. First of all, their opponent is largely wasting their turn. It's not always going to be the case, but they are largely wasting their turn. In the second case, you are giving yourself the chance of the double turn. So the default position, if you get the choice, is unless you look at your opponent's army and go, oh, I don't fancy taking, because they're an Alpha Strike army. I'm not really sure I fancy that. Generally speaking, you would need a very good reason not to give yourself the second turn. So now giving the player who goes second a bonus of command points, as if going second is a downside, as if you would generally want to choose to go first, that sounds like a madness. And I say some may choose to go first. Sometimes there are even sensible. Sometimes it's not even just ignorance or naivety. Sometimes there's a genuinely good reason to go first. Because the obvious counter to the meta of trying to give yourself a chance at the double turn, let's say you're going to yourself, well, I know I'm going to come up against armies that are going to have one drop. There are some armies you can make a good, like Blades of Corn, for example, you can make a good one drop army, base one battalion, bang, done. At which point, even if you have the same, you're rolling off and you think to yourself, do you know what? I would rather just build an army list where I expect not to choose who goes first and second and deal with that. So then what do you do? So you design an army that can deliver a powerful alpha strike in the first turn. So it's like, okay, you give me the first turn, I'm going to be up in your grill straight away. Now, this is only possible with so many armies as well. So the downside to these restrictive, these metas that lead you down certain paths is certain armies will shine. It's not that, and that's the thing, like sometimes just the way an army list is designed, the battle tome is, a particular army is going to shine anyway. Right, the old Lumineth Realm Lords. But sometimes it can just be a degenerate rule in the game, like the possibility of the double turn. That's what's so annoying about it. It's just this thing there that doesn't need to be there, and it just leads you to design certain armies competitively, for competitive purposes. So just because of the mere existence of the double turn, you encourage one of two types of army. Low drop battalion-based armies, or armies that can gain a major advantage from the first turn, your big alpha strike armies, when they'll be at maximum distance, but that's okay because we can cover that maximum distance, and they'd need to be able to weather the storm of a double turn. Now, as I say, don't over-egg it. Putting your opponent in first doesn't mean you get the double turn. It's not like you'd go to a tournament of 5 or 6 games and you've got a one-drop army. It doesn't mean you'll get to always go second if you want and you will get the double turn. That'll happen a couple of times in the tournament. But when it happens, it gives you such a massive advantage. And also, you are very likely to choose on every single game. There might be someone else who has a one-drop army as well. It's not very often. In which case, you can still make yourself go second. At least you stop your... So it's like in every game, you will definitely not be... You definitely won't give your opponent an early double turn, but you will give yourself one at least a couple of times in the tournament. You give yourself a slightly better than 50% chance of it each turn. Each game you play. But the event is so powerful that you are heavily encouraged to design an army that prevents your opponent even having the possibility. 1 or 2 drop armies are very common, on the top tables as a result. So now, as well as the inherent advantage in going second, Games Workshop want to sweeten the deal to make your double turn even more potent. Oh dear. But like I said, come as no surprise that I'm disappointed, but it is what it is. And before I say, this is terrible, for goodness sake, I'd like to see everything before passing judgment. I'd like to see everything related to it. Not going to go off on the deep end when I've only been given a glimpse of a new rule. But then they said something interesting as part of that. And again, they didn't put any emphasis on this, so this was like a throwaway statement. The thing about the bonus command points, that intrigued me. I'll quote what he said. If you choose to go second, you get more command points. That's interesting. See, the thing is, in Age of Sigmar right now, you get 1 command point per turn. Now, you can buy an extra one for 50 points a throw, and some people do that. That's not uncommon either. 50 points left, rather than try and just get a cheaper unit to stick somewhere. If you've got an army that can make good use of command points early on, like my Flesh Eater's Quartz, for example, it's not uncommon for me to buy one. 50 points a pop, yeah. You get one included in the price of a battalion. That's why some battalions can actually be quite good. Again, the Thrice Befoulment for Maggot King of Nurgle, absolute classic, costs next to nothing. You get a command point, you get a special rule with it, and you can have an extra relic as well. And there are also rare abilities that can give you one as well. But by and large, for a lot of armies that you're going to come up against, that player will get 1 command point at the start of their turn for each battle round. So if the game runs the course, they'll have 5 command points for the entire game in total. That's it. Now, this developer didn't just say you get an extra command point for going second, which would actually be proportionally huge in Age of Sigmar. It's a much bigger bonus than in, say, 40k right now. He said you get more command points, plural. That suggests they're going to shake up the command point system significantly. Now, if the implication is that we're going to end up with quite a few command points to spend, as in 40k, it would also suggest that the command ability system will be changed to take account of that. Now, personally, I hope it doesn't end up quite like 40k stratagems. See, I do like the general system. I like the idea that you have these abilities that you can use tactically. But I also think there are too many in 40k. You either need to know your army inside out. You may have to just play that one army all the time and know them inside out, like encyclopedia-like knowledge of them. Or have a really good system of alerting yourself to ones where you could be useful at certain times. Like on my cheat sheets, will have which stratagems can be used in each phase. So I look at each phase, I look at that page of my cheat sheet. But even then, I'm looking at it. It's taking time. It means delays to the game every time I do it. Because I'm just thinking to myself, if I play several armies, which I do, so I can't remember all the stratagems, every phase of the game I'm reading through to see if there's a stratagem that will be useful to me. Slows the game down. Your opponent does the same. So on the one hand, I would like to see an expanded command ability system, but not to the same extent as in 40k. I like the idea of having maybe half a dozen core command abilities. Now, at the moment, there's like a few, but half a dozen core command abilities I'm in favour of. Perhaps one associated with the army itself, which is quite typical these days. One with the sub-faction, as again is typical these days. Not all armies have it, like Nighthawk, for example, didn't get sub-faction, so they don't get one of these. But a lot of armies now do have sub-factions with their own command ability. That's, that's the way forward. And then one with major heroes, not necessarily all your minor ones, but major heroes as well. That way you'd keep it down to a manageable number of command abilities. And I think that would be an improvement to the game, because again, the idea of spending command points is, it allows player agency. It allows you to tactically reduce the swing of dice rolls, for example. But just as with the mention of the double turn, this was a simple statement with no detailed explanation. What I have here was about 2 minutes of rules philosophy to go on. With no detail, obviously it was a teaser, that's what it was. We have no idea, well I have no idea when the edition will release, perhaps autumn. Let me know in the comments if that was mentioned and I just missed it. Be interesting time because I think we should be into the full swing of battle reports on the channel by then. Because I should be able to get those started next month in June. And then hopefully improve them over the summer to the point of acceptability by the end of summer, which may well be round about the time we get the new edition. It'd be exciting. But that's what I think of the tiny amount of information presented to whet our appetites. Very much looking forward to a new edition, of course. Cleaning up the rules is going to be a good step forward. And the thing about the retained double turn, although I still think I'm likely to be not won over, it's not a step backwards at least. The double turn exists now, it's still going to exist, so it's not like anything's gone backwards. So if they do tidy up things and make things better, the third edition will still be better than the second edition, which is great. Even though it does sound like they're making it even worse by sweetening the deal. You've already got 2 advantages in going second against most armies. You're now getting the sweetener of extra command points. But there we are. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And until next time, I'll see you later.